question 6.2 is quite a big one, 7 marks. So we've got this massive trig expression that we need to simplify. I'm seeing a lot of co-ratios. You see the 90 plus here, I see reduction, the 180 minus, and then I see kind of weirder things over there that we've got to sort out. So we're going to tackle this one at a time. That -1 can stay because I can't really simplify that. So over here, I'm going to reduce. To reduce things, you need your cast diagram. So let's get that going quickly. Okay, with the cast diagram, this is in the 180 minus quadrant, which is this quadrant over here. And in that quadrant, only sign is positive. So that will imply that this cos will be negative there. So this just changes into negative cos theta. And then the sine of theta minus 90 is quite a tricky thing to deal with. So I'm going to focus on it on the side here to show you how we get, sort of how we change that thing. So I'm quite tempted to use the cofunctions, but there's no cofunction with theta minus 90. So this isn't even a cofunction, it's a whole thing on its own. So firstly what we do is we remove a negative out of the angle, and that switches the order. Then it changes into 90 minus theta, and it's almost starting to look like a cofunction. And then you put a 360 over here, and then that takes us into the 360 minus quadrant over there. And in that quadrant, only cos is positive, so sine will be negative. So this will change into negative sine with that angle glued onto it. And then I can go ahead and change the sine of 90 minus theta into cos theta using my cofunctions. And you almost want to get to the stage where you kind of know this off by heart. You don't want to show this working out because it doesn't get any marks. So you just immediately want to change this to this. So I'm going to do that over here. And then that sorts out this little complicated thing. Now we direct our attention towards this. That's not normal. I can't reduce it. I don't see 180 plus, 180 minus, or 360 minus. So I'm just going to put a 360 there. I'm going to add 360 to it to normalize it. So if something's weird, or it doesn't make sense like this, you add or subtract 360 to make it normal. Okay, now that we've sorted out that one, let's direct our attention towards that. That's a pretty stock standard cofunction. So sine of 90 plus changes into cos theta. So this whole thing will change into cos theta. And then this 540 is not normal, so to make it normal, I'm going to subtract 360. And 540 minus 360 will just give me 180. Now I'm going to start simplifying everything I can over here. This -1 can stay behind. Negative cos theta times negative cos theta is positive cos squared theta. And then this guy at the bottom here, he's in the 360 minus quadrant. Cos is positive there, so this whole thing will just change into cos theta. I like to wrap these guys in brackets as well, so that it helps me remember I'm multiplying these things. Okay, this cos theta is simplified as far as possible, so he can stay behind. And this tan is in the 180 plus quadrant. In the 180 plus quadrant, tan is positive. So this will just change into tan squared of theta. Okay, now I'm starting to see trig identities. So I'm seeing a tan here, and this is almost an identity. So you've got to think back to the identities you learnt in grade 11. These are not on the formula sheet, so you've got to know them off by heart. So if I see a tan, I can change it into sine over cos. And bear in mind that works with squares too. So if you have tan squared, you can also change that to sine squared over cos squared. And I'm almost seeing this identity on top here. I've got -1 plus cos squared. And this one is 1 minus cos squared. So to enable me to use this identity, I'm going to remove a common factor of -1 from the top here. And then at the bottom, cos times cos is cos squared theta. And I'm going to change the tan squared theta into sine squared over cos squared using trig identities. Okay, so in the bracket over here, I'm going to change this 1 minus cos squared into sine squared theta using my identities. The minus just stays in front. And then at the bottom I'm multiplying these two. So I'm going to change this into a fraction, cos squared theta over 1. And then the cos squareds will cancel over here. So at the bottom I'm just left with sine squared theta. And then the sine squared thetas cancel. And I'm just left with -1 as my final answer. And that brings this behemoth of a question to a close. Let's have a look where our 7 marks are coming from. Okay, so our reduction over here gets us the first mark. Our cofunction over there gets us our second mark. This cofunction over here gets us our third mark, and then reducing that correctly gets us our fourth mark. Reducing this thing correctly gets us our fifth mark. The correct use of the identity here gets us our sixth mark, and our seventh mark comes from the final answer.